For a long time, the batting triple crown was the goal that MLB's elite hitters strived for. To lead the league in batting average, homers, and runs batted in, a hitter needs to be an elite contact hitter, top power threat, and excel in situational hitting. From 1922 through 1947, there were 8 Triple Crown seasons. For the next 20 years, there were only 3. Since 1967, there has been only 1. Miguel Cabrera's 2012 season wasn't even his best, but it was incredible. He led the American League with a .330 average, 44 homers, and 139 RBIs. We now know that these stats aren't really everything, especially RBIs, but Miggy's Triple Crown represents him being the top power and contact threat in the American League at the same time. In the 5 seasons entering 2012, only Albert Pujols tops him in OPS and OPS+. And Albert's 2012 was his second consecutive year putting up career lows in both stats. Miggy was still in his prime, and he was the most feared hitter in baseball, except for one man, the man hitting right behind him. Prince Fielder signed a 9-year, $214 million contract in late January of 2012. The deal came together just 9 days after Tigers DH Victor Martinez tore his ACL. Martinez was Miggy's protection in the lineup in 2011, and although he hit very well and drove in a lot of runs, Fielder was a different beast. Prince hit 200 homers in his final 5 years in Milwaukee and led the league in games played and walks in that time span. The only man with more homers was Ryan Howard, who had just suffered a torn Achilles in the playoffs and would never get back to his peak level again. It's safe to say that Prince was seen as the best home run hitter entering 2012, and he had also cut down on strikeouts in his contract year. He was the 300, 400, 500 slash candidate who hit 50 homers at just 23 years old, and Miggy's Triple Crown season wouldn't have been possible without Prince's help. Miggy loves to swing the bat. He's only ever had one season with over 100 walks, and that was in 2011. He was hitting better than ever, thus teams were pitching around him more than ever. But with Prince protecting him in the lineup in 2012, he only walked 66 times. In just 9 more plate appearances, he got 50 more at-bats, which indicates that he was seeing more pitches to hit. So I took a look at the data to see if he was, in fact, seeing more strikes, and I found pretty much what I expected. When he was ahead in the count, he saw strikes about 52% of the time in 2012, up from 49% in 2011. This makes sense. Teams weren't as willing to walk him with Fielder coming up next, but the real difference came when he was behind in the count. While behind, he saw strikes about 31% of the time in 2011, and that climbed all the way up to 36% in 2012. What this tells me is that when teams got ahead of him in the count, they tried to put him away quicker, but this led to him getting 14 more hits while behind in the count in 2012. He was seeing more pitches to hit and walking less, and knowing that he wasn't going to be pitched around as much likely allowed him to become more of a free swinger. These factors helped him achieve a career high in homers and a big spike in runs batted in. Josh Hamilton finished the year with just 1 less homer, and I think it's perfectly reasonable to assume that without seeing those extra strikes, Cabrera doesn't lead the league in homers, and we're going on 55 years without a single Triple Crown winner. When you look at Prince Fielder's wins above replacement in 2012, you would think of him as a great all-star level player, but I think he was much more than that in his prime. His poor defense and saturated position brings his WAR down, but I really think he has powerful intangibles. He was an Iron Man, and his daily presence in the lineup was always something his opponents had to be wary of. He boosted the hitters that he hit behind, which isn't calculated into WAR or any other value assessor that I know of. I took a look at Ryan Braun, who hit ahead of Prince for the majority of Prince's prime. Braun hit third in the Brewers lineup 650 times from 2007 through 2011, and Fielder hit right behind him all but 7 of those games. In that time span, Braun played 79 games batting in other spots and pinch hitting, almost never with Fielder on deck. This chart includes Braun's OPS in both of these situations, as well as how he did the 5 years after Prince left Milwaukee. He hit better in the 3 spot regardless, but he went from a great hitter to an elite hitter with Prince protecting him. Miguel Cabrera was the best hitter in baseball in 2012, and I don't really think that could be disputed, but teams still preferred pitching to him over pitching to Prince. Win probability added measures the change in win expectancy of each plate appearance. A WPA of 1 means that a player has done enough to win 1 game for his team. Leverage matters, so players who hit come from behind homers late in games and perform other clutch feats grade better in WPA. Clutch opportunities are essential, and being on a good team helps a ton, but those who top the league in the stat are usually the best hitters in the game. It's a purely hitter versus pitcher stat, so for position players, it only measures hitting, and they never get penalized for poor defense. From 2007 through 2012, Prince only trails Albert in WPA by about half a point, and he leads every other batter in the bigs with only a handful even being close. I feel like this is more indicative of the true value that he brought to his team than his 32nd ranked WAR in that span. Every offensive metric and his intangibles paint him as an elite top 3 hitter in his prime, and I just don't think a first baseman's defense should knock him down that much when he's this good at the plate. I am not here to make an argument for Prince as a Hall of Famer, but I feel like people have generally forgotten just how good he was at his best. Had his career not been cut short by his neck injury, I think he would have at least had a solid case for Cooperstown. I know he'll probably fall off the ballot after this year, but I'd take 2007 through 2013 Prince Fielder in my lineup any day over peak Omar Vizquel or Bobby Abreu.
Prince Fielder wants it. The Tigers are going to the World Series for the 11th time in franchise history.
Besides having the best 3-4 punch in the league, the Tigers also had an elite starting rotation. They won the pennant fairly easily over the Yankees, sweeping them in 4 games, but the even-year Giants dynasty won their second of 3 rings in a 4-game sweep. Prince struggled all postseason long, and Miggy wasn't his usual self. They were shut out twice and only scored 6 runs in the series. In 2013, they fell to the Red Sox in the ALCS, with Fielder and Cabrera both struggling again. Prince was still good, but his 2013 was a big step back from 2012, and he was traded for Ian Kinsler after the season. He played through nagging neck injuries in 2014, which ended up requiring a spinal fusion surgery. After a solid all-star season in 2015, he again started to feel the pain in his neck, which ended up requiring a second spinal fusion and led to his abrupt retirement in 2016 at just 32 years old. Miggy went on to have an even better 2013, with only Chris Davis preventing him from another Triple Crown, and he continued to be great through 2016, but nagging injuries sapped his power and kept him off the field for a good chunk of these past 5 years. He's still playing for the Tigers, but he's a shell of his former self and will probably take a greatly reduced role as the team looks to contend again for the first time since the mid-2010s. It's a shame that these two guys never won a title together, but the 2012 season was a special case of symbiosis in a lineup that I remember very fondly.
And Fielder and Prince can't get there. He was the closest. Did Prince just grab a Nacho? That's beautiful. He sure did. Took one of that man's nacho. He didn't dip it in the cheese, though. It might have already had some cheese on it.